Thank you very much indeed for being a part of the conversation here this afternoon. This is Akwa Decides, returning here on Spectrum Television. Well, it's the weekend. You know, some would say the beginning of a new week, but of course we understand the issues don't go on holidays. They don't understand the weekend. Well, be it insecurity, be it the biting economic hardship. There's the ASU strike in the background. But of course, we're here to talk about the latest political developments as we gear up for the next general elections here in our state of Akwa Ibom, and of course, indeed, the country, Nigeria. My name is Raj James, and it's a pretty fine afternoon to be here. The week has been quite a busy one across the different political parties. So here this afternoon, we're looking back at a very busy week and the activities we've seen across the political parties, the APC, the PDP, and a lot more. We say it's getting closer. And of course, indeed, if you're following the polity, it's getting very, very interesting. We'll talk a lot more about the primaries this afternoon and what you make of the process when you get to join the conversation this afternoon on social media and, of course, via the phone lines. I've got a guest here in the studio, but of course, I won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. We'll talk to him in a bit with regards to the latest political developments in our state and our country. Now, typically in the show, we'll begin with News Trail, bringing you the very latest news making rounds here politically in the state and the country. And now we'll begin from the national scene, where former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has been elected as the PDP's 2023 presidential flag bearer. Now, it was elected, the platform was the People's Democratic Party, to be the party's flag bearer for the 2023 presidential election. It will be the 75-year-old's sixth attempt for the nation's top job. He was also the PDP's candidate in the last election in 2019, which he lost to President Muhammadu Buhari. To win the PDP's 2023 ticket, Atiku had to beat the likes of River State Governor Nyesom Wike, Akwa Ibom State Governor Domi Manuel, and former Senate President Bukola Saraki. Now, still from the national scene, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, we understand, have extended the schedule of the 2023 general elections. INEC, within the week, extended the deadline for political parties to conduct their primaries for the general elections. INEC's National Commissioner, Chairman of Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, announced this in a statement in Abuja after leaders of various political parties met with the leadership of the electoral umpire led by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, at the Commission's headquarters in the nation's capital. Now, furthermore, we understand SERAP, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, have written to INEC seeking voter registration deadline extension and even going further to threaten legal action. They've urged the Independent National Electoral Commission to extend the voter registration deadline in line with the extension granted political parties for their primaries. The extension of voter registration, the Human Rights Organization said, will give more time for eligible Nigerians to exercise their rights to participation during the 2023 and subsequent elections. The online voter pre-registration ends by May 30, 2022, while the ongoing continuous voter registration will end by June 30, 2022, back here in the state. The People's Democratic Party in Akwa Ibom during the week joined its counterparts in other states of the Federation and the FCT to hold its gubernatorial primary election. Now, we understand, speaking at the end of the exercise at the Nest of Champions in Uyo, the state leader and the state governor, Doimano, congratulated Pastor Omoino for emerging winner at the primaries with 993 votes. Now, crossing over to the APC, where they also held their gubernatorial primary election here in the state, which reportedly produced Akano Dofia as flag bearer. Well, it's been appealed by factions of the party over the ongoing chairmanship legitimacy fight. It could be recalled that the primaries was scheduled to take place at two different locations, with the Austin Ekanem and Stephen Togepo Akams each picking different locations. Now, we'll get talking on this and a lot more after this short timeout. Stay right here with us. very much indeed for joining the conversation here on Akwa Decides this lovely Sunday afternoon. And my guest is a lawyer and, of course, a teacher as well. It is an absolute delight to welcome to studios this afternoon Dr. Akwa. Good afternoon, welcome to Akwa Decides.
Thank you for this opportunity.
How's the weekend been for you?
Yeah, it has been a busy weekend following political happenings, not just in the state, but in the country. It's quite interesting. Thank you.
All right, so let's lean in the conversation now and quickly talk about the primaries across major political parties. Now, well, in the glare, it is looked, free and fair on camera, but behind the scene, there's a lot of politicking, as always, and a lot going on there. How would you describe the primaries so far this year compared to, the build-up to the 2019 elections?
The primaries of the various of the frontline political parties in Nigeria this year will appear not to be as straightforward as the ones we had in 2019. And perhaps as a result of the amendment to the Electoral Act, which came in not too far from when the activities began. I recall that the National Assembly had amended the Electoral Act some time ago, where the president withheld his assent. The act went back to the bill then went back to the National Assembly. The National Assembly worked on it and sent it back. And there was a lot of pressure on the president to give his assent. He gave his assent, and that is what we are now using. And it will appear that there are a lot of issues with the act, which perhaps prompted the National Assembly to come up with a bill amending the amended act. The ones we're praying for the president to give his assent to, which assent is yet to be given. And perhaps that has left us where we are today. It appears as if each persons in the various political parties is trying to interpret the act in the way he understands and is acting as such. So compared to the build-up to the 2019 elections, I think there was a lot of clarity, certainty in 2019 as compared to what we are witnessing presently.
Right. And now, the whole talk centers now on the Electoral Act as amended, 2022. Now, let's look at some of the provisions, and controversial as it were, where you think have characterized and, of course, have been at the front burner in the build-up to the primary elections across the different political parties?
Majorly, for now, it has been the issue of the Electoral College, the process of emergence of candidates who is entitled to vote. From the act, like we have seen the PDP, what the PDP has done, that ad hoc delegates are the ones voting. There is another school of thought which is to the effect that not just ad hoc delegates should, but I think going by the act, it will appear that ad hoc delegates should vote. Now, the major problem now is the emergence of these ad hoc delegates. In almost all the states of the Federation, the chief executives of these states had a way of pocketing that process. And major stakeholders in the political parties have been aggrieved, feeling that the process, apparently that the process has been hijacked, or the process is being controlled by the state chief executives. Unfortunately, the way our political parties are, in almost all the states, although there are party leaders, party ESCO, the chairman of the party, the chapter chairman, that's the state chairman, and others are there, it would appear that the governor of each state, particularly where the particular political party is the ruling party in that state, everything in such political parties would appear to be controlled by the chief executive of that state.
Right.
So that appears to be the major contention.
Right. Now, we'll talk a lot more about the governors and what the amended Electoral Act, what it means for them particularly. But let's head back and look at the first story we talked about on our news trail, the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as the PDP's flag bearer for the PDP ahead of next year's presidential election for the 6th time. It's going for the top job. And now he's gotten the ticket at the expense of the likes of Nyesom Wike, who was the closest challenger. We also had former Senate President Bukola Saraki, and then Akwa Ibom State Governor Udomi Mano. What did you make of the whole intrigues, the whole politicking in the build-up to that one, and the eventual emergence of Atiku Abubakar?
Looking at what transpired there, anybody from the perspective we're watching will say that the process was transparent. Will say that delegates, persons who were supposed to vote, voted, and that would also say that their vote counted. Yes, that is watching from a distance. But beyond that, one would have observed that a lot of activities went on behind the scene. One was the fact that somebody like Tambuwa, governor of Sokoto State, who was also an aspirant, waited till almost the last minute. He stepped down and urged his supporters to vote for Atiku Abubakar, who eventually emerged. And while others were still pushing, move a little further from them, we had people like someone like Peter Obi, who was also on the race and who appeared to have had a lot of followership, particularly from the youth. Now, Peter Obi's withdrawal from the race and the platform left some gaps which Atiku and others exploited, and perhaps it worked for Atiku. Atiku has been on, had this ticket. I think it should be the 6th time.
Yeah.
And ordinarily, he appeared to have been the most experienced on the night. He has had it for 5 times before that. He knew he knew exactly what to do, whom to meet, what to tell who, and what to expect. So I think the experience gave it to him. That is beside the behind-the-scene activities that must have happened.
Yeah. Now, talk about behind-the-scene activities.
Yes.
You know, well, you can't entirely believe and take to the bank what you see on social media.
Yes.
But we saw, envelopes, hard currency, dollars to be very particular, and then I also noticed something around the venue of that particular exercise where men, operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission,
Were said to be around.
Yeah, well, we saw them in pictures and videos. They were around. And in the build-up to this election, as in previous elections, we're talking about monetization of the election process. Now, many would wonder, didn't they see the envelopes? Well, I saw them in videos checking Ghana Must Goes and bags and couldn't find anything there.
Yeah, apart from what we saw, what traded on social media, we had somebody like one of the aspirants who withdrew shortly before the election, alleging that the process had been monetized. When Peter Obi also withdrew, reading through his letter, there were a lot of things going on which it didn't go down well with him. Remember that Peter Obi had said that he will not give anybody money for him to vote for him. In other words, he will not buy votes. And considering this, it will appear that money played a lot of role in that. And in Nigeria, money has always been a deciding factor when it comes to elections. Now, looking at the price tag for nomination and expression of interest form of the various political parties, particularly the major political parties, money plays a serious factor. Now, can an ordinary citizen have made himself somebody who has perhaps worked in the civil service or been a businessman, been able to have that kind of money to work into to pay for this? The answer is likely to be in the negative. So money apparently played a serious factor. One would have expected that in 2022, the Nigerians actually expected more. Nigerians actually expected that things were going to be different in 2022. And perhaps that was what encouraged people like Peter Obi to throw his hat into the ring then, believing that having gone this far, that Nigerians needed change and that the game would be different. It doesn't appear to me that anything has changed.
All right, now let's look at another part of the conversation. The build up to the 2023 election, particularly within the PDP family, there's been a talk about zoning, and there's been this, sudden clamor from the south for power to come to the south. Well, PDP at the national level didn't do that. They threw it wide open. Yeah. But now many are wondering, particularly in light of the dynamics and what we saw play out in the nation's capital, Abuja, last night or the early hours of this morning, if you like. Would you say the South are ready strategically to take power at the center?
Maybe we should say the South. PDP constitution makes provisions for zoning. From the beginning of the process, we were told right here in the state that there will be zoning. Right from the ward level, emphasis was placed on zoning. Until we got to in fact, even when it came to the governorship, for example, in the state here, we have had our governor, which is from Eke Senatorial District. Yeah. So you got having had it. Yeah, before so everybody that before that, so everybody just expected that the thing was coming to you, and clearly it is coming to you. So going to Abuja, everybody also expected that since the PDP is a responsible party, since the PDP is seen to be so, that that will also follow. It appeared to me that wasn't. Unlike, as against what is in their constitution, they must have suspended that provision to allow everybody come to contest. And the question is, was that not done so that a particular person would take benefit of it? That's the problem. That is the problem. So
it looks like an issue of double standard.
It appears as if what they did was to encourage party members from the ward to state to hold on to zoning. And when they did that and got to the last level, the game plan changed. Apparently, maybe because they already had who they wanted. but sorry, like some people said, whom they prefer. So since zoning will not have favored that person, they suspended it. And I think these are the problems we're having in this country. Looking at making laws, policies, because of individuals, because of personalities. Wherever you have persons higher than institutions or being given prominence than institutions, then the persons will make sure that the institutions are weak. Then when the institutions are supposed to protect the persons will trample on such institutions. So I think the zoning should have been allowed. Now, looking at the position of the South.
Yeah, and how strategic
Yes.
the South has been in the push for the presidency.
I want to, even though there were glamour, even from the North, I think even somebody like Tambuwa at a point was talking about that, particularly to the Southeast. For those of us for our politicians in the South, it didn't, and it doesn't still appear to us that they are serious. Now look at it. Tambuwa, through his support for Atiku, we had many Southerners who were still in the race, getting votes, sharing the votes. Even though, considering the relationship and how Governor Wike has been struggling, giving us the impression that he is projecting, trying to protect Tambuwa's interests. One would have expected that. If Tambuwa was going to step down and to throw his support to someone, honestly, if I were dreaming, I would have thought he would have done it to Wike.
Yeah,
if I were not in Nigeria,
yeah, considering what we've seen in the
maybe
media.
I was in space, and I just came in, and I was told that Tambuwa stepped down and threw his support to somebody, I would have, and I was asked who, I would have said Wike, but that didn't happen. Wike was on the ballot, Udom was on the ballot, and many governors in the South did not appear to be working for any of the Southern aspirants. And I also think that the same thing might play out, is likely to play out in the other, in the other major political party, that is the APC.
Mm. Interesting indeed.
So I don't think we are ready for the presidency.
Right. We'll shift the conversation now very quickly and talk about the governors and the certain power, many say, the amendments of the Electoral Act is, subtly given to them. Was it envisaged by the people that wrote the law? Well, we'll talk about that in a bit after this short break. But you can quickly join the conversation. We'll talk about the primaries and what you make of the process so far and the lessons to be learned ahead of the general elections next year. Beyond social media, which is on Facebook, SpectrumTv, you can join the conversation via the phone lines on 0702 558 0019. That is 0702 558 0019. We'll return after the short break and we'll talk a lot more. Stay right here with us. much for staying right here with us on Akwa Ibom Decides here on Spectrum Television. Now, let's continue the conversation, and I have here in the studio Dr. Etefia Ekadem. He's a lawyer and, of course, a teacher of law as well. Now, let's bring the conversation a little bit closer to home. But before that, let's talk about the national phenomenon. Now, I remember we had this conversation, you know, off the studio. Now, the Electoral Act, it seems to have been the game changer ahead of next year's election, particularly for the governors. Many say that the Electoral Act and following its amendments, it has arrogated almost too much power to the governors, you know, making them key deciders as to where things go ahead of next year's general election. Now, I'd like to, you know, have your thoughts very quickly on the legislature. They actually made these laws. That's their job. Did the lawmakers in any way envisage this kind of twist and, of course, to turn ahead of the next general elections?
I'm right. I don't want to believe that the lawmakers envisage what is happening now. I think the intention could have been to send power to the grassroots so that candidates will emerge with the involvement of grassrooters. The intention was for political parties, for aspirants, to go back to the grassroots and ensure that those people there get involved. Now, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, that landed in the hands of state executives. And the state executive, each state executive is holding this power very dear to his heart. Now, if we look at, apart from what happened in Abuja, for example, in Abuja, the article that emerged had 300, I think, 371 votes.
Yes, 371.
Yes. The next person, which was Wike, had 230 something.
Yeah.
And we had somebody, Saraki had 70 now. That showed voting pattern. Now, come down to the states. You see one candidate scoring 1,000. Others, maybe the next, scoring 1, 2, 0. Which apparently, the process through which the delegates emerged had been hijacked by one person. So, it's even the lawmakers themselves realized that they had no rules for themselves. So what are we expecting? We pray that the Electoral Act will see us through the 2023 elections. As soon as that happens, we should expect serious amendment to the Act. Because National Assembly, members of National Assembly, as it is right now, even when they return to their various constituencies, they almost have to subject themselves to their state governors to play any roles. And we are foreseeing that they will try to correct this by maybe placing an amendment on the Act.
Now, many thoughts, you know, ahead of the primaries has been on delegates and their role, but it clearly looks like we're talking about a governor patron, strongman role, if you like. So it looks like it's a patron and, of course, a client relationship. How dangerous is that for the political system?
Very, very dangerous. We'll see, looking at route, you'll see governors preparing to hand over to their sons. By sons, maybe not necessarily biological sons, but in some cases, don't be surprised that we have, in some cases, biological sons. Yeah. Sitting down to write, to determine who goes to the Senate, House of Reps, and State House of Assembly. This cannot be healthy at all. This cannot be healthy. And we have seen in some cases where very senior members of the National Assembly are having issues with their state governors and stepping out from their various political parties, this is not healthy at all. And this places a lot of question on the capacity of our National Assembly. The question is, didn't they foresee this? It is doubtful they did. It is doubtful that they would have carried, that they would have consciously want to pull the trigger against themselves. Thank you.
All right, now, if we talk about same old, where the strongmen, being the governors in this instance, and then money is playing a very huge role to the emergence, leading to the emergence of the various aspirants.
I am doubting if money alone.
Yeah.
In this case, there are people with truckloads of money,
yeah, so,
but cannot break.
Yeah, so we're looking at the combination. The strongmen being the governor and money, yes, also coming as inducements to, yes, the delegates. Now, many will be left wondering, where is the hope for a better process? After all, we should be talking about from 2019, yeah, before that 2015, an improvement from the last election. So now, where is the hope for the entire process? The hope of a better process, a better election, and ultimately the selection of what many would tag a credible leader to see to the betterment of Akwa Ibomites and Nigerians in general?
All hope is not lost. I don't think all hope is lost. You see, there is something plays out, something happens. Whenever power is given to someone, he wants to protect it. He wants to do everything to ensure that that power does not slip out of his hands. So even when the persons are anointed, they are anointed who want to collect the oil of anointment from the man that handed over to him, so that he too will become a kingmaker. So what will happen? As soon as the National Assembly, after the 2023 general elections, the National Assembly will definitely take a look at the Electoral Act again to ensure the members of the National Assembly would also want to be involved. And in trying to get themselves involved, it will be open up for other Nigerians to be involved. So I strongly believe that there is hope. The National Assembly will sit down to look at the act again. And let me say this. Right now, I know there is a bill, and I'm seeking to amend the act, which the president has not ascended to. That act, if that bill had been ascended to by the president, it is very doubtful if this somewhat mischief wouldn't have been addressed. So I am thinking that this will not be something that will befall us forever or for too long.
Right now,
we come out of it.
Now let's talk about the delegates very, very directly. Following the political process, you think they understand the burden on them and, of course, the implication of what they do to the entire process? That's one. The other end, should we now, even at the political party level, be looking at debates among aspirants, so beyond financial and, of course, muscle, in terms of the strongmen and adoption, godfatherism and all the phenomena we'll talk about associated with this? So the delegates would, out of their own free will, out of their own volition, choose a candidate of their choice based on blueprints and antecedents.
All right, let me start from the debate. It takes somebody who is not just enlightened, but who is able to articulate reasoning, to listen to debate and make sense out of it. Looking at our population and looking at our economy as it is today, how many Nigerians from the masses that what bothers them is survival will have the time to sit down and listen to debate? How many? I heard people talk about Obi, that he was an aspirant with ideas, that with Nigeria is not a state for ideas, and that he was in the wrong place. Now, he kept talking, as it is right now, considering our economy. If somebody should give out 5 naira, I'm saying 5 naira, while the other man is talking, many will move to the side where 5 naira is being shared than listen to the man with ideas. So right now, money still plays a very serious part. Now, the burden on delegates. How did these delegates emerge? That is the first, where we should even begin from. Listening to going back to the grassroots, you hear people who said they bought form. They looked for form to buy to become delegates. But the processes were made such that they could not see the light of day. Which means, even at the point of accessing the form to be delegates, there were issues. So, do they understand, those who emerge as delegates, do they understand the burden? I doubt. Sorry, let's get back to how the last year of governance in our country, that is local government, the leadership there emerged. Many believe that somebody just sat down somewhere and wrote names, and and those persons ended up as chairmen and councillors. The question is, how was that different from how these delegates emerged? When they were imposed on the people, there would be always at the back of their minds that belief that they owe the man who gave them the opportunity, that they owe that person a duty, and that whatever that person tells them is what they will do. I mean, it is not just in one state. Look at many other states. Look at the voting patterns in many other states, and compare it. At least we have had the presidential primaries of the PDP. You saw the voting pattern. Now the result. Now compare it to what we got from the state. Obviously, it appeared you had people who were brought around, maybe put in a room, perhaps their phones collected, and now ask them to, okay, when you go, this is what you do, and they just acted it out. I think this was not the intention of the lawmakers. This is not also the intention of the Electoral Act. But usually, give somebody an opportunity, and he wants to take everything. That is it.
All right, now, let's look at another phenomenon, even as we draw the conversation closer to Akwa Ibom. The issue of struggle between political families and, of course, governors. Yes. The issue of Delta is very glaring. Akwa, the governor in Delta, had his preferred candidate for the governorship election. James Ibori, who is a household name as far as politics in Delta is concerned, also had his own candidate. Well, at the end of it, we saw Okowa's candidate, emerging, while Ibori had to settle. His daughter got the House of Representatives ticket and all. Go to other states. Sule Lamido, former governor, had his son emerging in one of the states, and the whole tussle between political families and governors, you could see it dotted across different states of the Federation.
Yeah, let me say this. These persons are Nigerians. They are Nigerians. And the question should be, are they qualified? Mm. If they are qualified, there is nothing wrong. But the major problem is the way they emerge. Like you talk about Okowa and Ibori. One is a governor, and the other, the family had always been there. Immediately, anybody that places the two aside would definitely, who has the power right now? Somebody has the yam and the knife. The man who has the yam and the knife will cut it the way he wants to cut it. And that is exactly what played out. You see, until the gap that has been identified in the Act is closed, until political parties begin to be political parties, what we have now, if somebody asks, who are the owners of the political parties, we know are those who call themselves party men. How much do they contribute to the party? do they pay anything into the party, or we just wait until it is election time? The moment we continue to do that, those who sustain the parties, sometimes even with state funds, will be the ones with the knife and the yam. And when they cut, they cut and slice the yam the way they like, we should hardly complain.
All right, now, if you want to join the conversation, you can quickly do that on 0702-558-0019. Otherwise, you could drop a comment on underneath the live feed in Spectrum TV on Facebook, 0702-558-0019. And of course, we'll be entertaining those calls from now going forward. Now, Doctor, let's talk about the activities and, of course, how it played out here in Akwa Ibom State. We saw Pastor Moino emerging as the PDP flag bearer for next year's governorship election here in the state. And was a whole lot who had candidates or aspirants pulling out on the verge of that. But it looks like we've got a call. And let's see if we can talk with this caller. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Akwa Ibom Decides. Your name, where are you calling us from? Hello. Oh, sounds like it's a drop call situation. Doctor, we're talking about the situation here, and you talked about the gap. Now, we had two strong forces. Many will consider, you know, Basi Albert, Senator, and of course the House of Representatives member, Onofio Luke, withdrawing just at the nick, at the 11th hour, many would say. And many point to the fact that, you know, what you said earlier on, that assent which the president has withheld, would have changed the dynamics there. You monitored the process very closely, and we had elsewhere what many would consider drama, a primary election, if you like, elsewhere, you know, from the PDP. But how would you say the process was generally, having monitored very closely?
You see, right now, almost all over the country, the preferred candidates or the preferred aspirants of each governor had it. If there's any aspirant a governor preferred or gave the impression he preferred who didn't win, that perhaps that governor was deceiving the person. Now, in Akwa Ibom, where we had Albert, Luke, and the governor, His Excellency Udom. Now, in 2019, these people came together to forge a common cause. You see, that's the beauty of democracy. That's the beauty of democracy, which is why, like you asked earlier, I said I'm not scared. The system will correct itself. Today, these three personalities are on their own, trying to fight for his survival. Now, Albert and Luke realized that the way it went, the way the ad hoc delegates emerged, they had no chance. They stood no chance. They did what appeared to be honorable by taking a bow and taking other steps. Could any other person in his right senses have thought that he could have been able to block the governor from having his preferred or his anointed aspirant? As it is today, the answer would be in the negative. No. But now, if these persons feel convinced, there are other platforms. Nigeria, we have a multi-party system. There are other platforms which they can use to test their popularity. So, to me, it is an healthy thing.
Yeah, but
because now, after now, those who are with the governor today, assuming they get it, please, you can write it down your diary. By next election, by 2026, 2027, some of them will be fighting against whoever becomes governor. Some of them will now wear the shoes of Albert and Luke. And they'll be the one telling us equity, fairness, justice. By that time, they will not remember the roles they played today. And that is the beauty of the whole thing.
Yeah, and now many would also observe, you know, there's a limitation with regards to the the now passed Electoral Act. The Electoral Act is amended 2022, which doesn't allow persons to stand primary elections at more than one political party. Now, we've seen the phenomenon spread across the country. Iyenaya Baribe, Senate Minority Leader, left, his party, that's the PDP, joined APGA, pulled out of the primaries. Same with Senator Ike Ekweremadu in Enugu, withdrew from the primaries, though he hasn't made an announcement as to where he's heading. So are you envisaging, possibly in the coming days and the coming weeks, these two political figures, in your words, testing their political prowess, on other platforms? But that would be after this call. Looks like we've got a caller now. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Akwa Ibom Decides. Hello. Well, it's quite rocky this afternoon. I can't quite say why, but we'll continue the conversations here anyway. Yeah.
You see, let me say this. In the coming days, that is likely to happen. Now, you said something about the Electoral Act and that which one cannot stand primary elections in more than one political platforms. These persons never stood. Yeah. Now, if any of them withdrew from the race, like this person did, like Obi did,
yeah, Peter
wrote,
Obi did,
withdrew from the race and even pulled himself out, took a bow from the party. Now, even if the party goes ahead to have his name on the ballot, it doesn't make any difference. It goes to court. It is out. It is clear that the person had withdrawn. So if that happens, they can go ahead to try their popularity. But you see, beyond these primaries, after now, that's where money politics really comes in. That's where people really wait to collect their one cup of rice to sell their vote, to collect a token to sell their vote. More so when there is so much hungry in the land. Sometimes someone may be tempted to believe that our leaders intentionally make sure that we are impoverished. So that when it comes to this point, it can be very easy for them to exploit us. Because a man that is hungry would almost do anything for his stomach.
All right, now let's leave the PDP and look at the APC. Well, there was a lot of drama in the course of the week as well in the build-up to the primaries. Meanwhile, we'll have, as many would observe, two factions of the APC here in the state, one led by Austin Ekanem, the other led by Stephen Tuwepo. And when it got to the primaries, the materials arrived from Abuja, and there was that tussle. One got the materials and went ahead to conduct the primary, which saw the emergence of businessman and, of course, philanthropists as a papers who captured Akanodofia. Now, is this not treading on very dangerous paths, considering what happened in the build-up to the 2019 elections, particularly in Zamfara and very close by here, River State? The APC playing with fire, as many would say.
Let me say this. Would they have not folded their arms not to have done anything? No political party will do that. If you ask me, the APC in Akwa Ibom State is playing with fire. The PDP is also playing with fire. But like politicians.
Yeah, we'll have a call. Thank you very much for joining Akwa Ibom Decides this afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling us from? Can you get closer to your mouthpiece so we can hear you a lot more clearly?
My name is Victor. I'm calling from Uyo.
All right, go ahead, talk to us. Wow. Clarity seems to be the issue with that call.
Please, what I was expecting from you guys is what I don't see.
Please, can you walk away from your radio set meanwhile, or your listening device, and then go get closer to your mouthpiece so we can hear you a lot more audibly? Wow.
Okay, like I was saying,
we lost that call.
You don't, one does not, was one expecting the political, for example, APC to fold its arms without doing anything, or the PDP in the face of the status quo antebellum. No political party will fold its arms without doing anything. Now, but the truth is, APC in Akwa Ibom State is a gathering of, and with due respect to them, a gathering of persons that are always at war with itself. Having said that, one would have wondered, would they ever agree to work together? It is that, I don't know. Now, but what I would say is that in electioneering processes, each step a person or a party takes, people are watching. And this, because these steps will eventually be subject of litigation. It is very possible that eventually the court might make a pronouncement one way or the other in the two major political parties in Akwa Ibom State. It is very possible that the court might, one way or the other, throw away what has been done or what is said to have been done, pronouncing the position. More so, considering the fact that this electoral act, we are just trying to, came not too long ago, and everybody is trying to give it the understanding, the interpretation he understands. So, rightly or wrongly, APC is doing what they feel they are right, or each of the factions. Now, PDP too, rightly or wrongly, I learned there were also two primaries. One, I don't know whether one was in a private residence, I don't know, but they were here. So eventually the court will make pronouncements on this. And let us not say, look at this as being peculiar to Akwa Ibom State alone. No, it is not. The Electoral Act is an act of National Assembly, and it is applied in the entirety of our country. In other states, these things are also playing out. I want to say that the court will really be busy in the coming weeks in trying to interpret the act and place it side by side with the actions of political personnel.
Now, very quickly, as we get set to wrap up, in all of this, there's the electoral umpire.
Yes.
INEC, they've been watching, they've been monitoring, and they've followed the process. They're supposed to supervise, and they have done so a lot more closely. Have they done their bit here, or have they gone about, as many would say, aiding and abating whatever the political parties want?
Ordinarily, INEC should be seen to be doing it best. But INEC too is also trying to understand the act and follow the political parties the way it understands the act. So eventually, the court pronouncement will also include INEC, because they, like you use the word aiding and abating, there will be such allegations will follow, and they themselves will need to clear their names. After now, the court will be very busy. The action, even the action of the security agencies, the action of the umpires, and generally, there's this other issue of like women inclusion. Has that been captured?
Well,
is anybody remembering the women today?
No.
Even the women themselves, are they remembering themselves?
No, that would be a story for another day.
I think we should leave that for now. So, but that is what I'm saying. Now, everybody is now trying to follow the act to be sure that this is how we understand the act. Let's follow it. And in doing that, like I said, we've forgotten women. Even the not too young to run thing. Nobody is remembering that. I don't know how old Atiku is. I don't also know how old Asiwaju and others are. It's like we are forgetting some of those things. But I think eventually the court, whatever gap is there, the court will fill them.
Hello.
No, looks like we have one sneaking in at the nick of time. Hello, welcome to Akwa Ibom Decides.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher, calling from Uyo.
All right, Christopher from Uyo, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for setting the panel. But the problem I have there is, I didn't expect that you need to take somebody that advanced in politics more than the man that is sitting down here, because what we are listening is not what we expect to hear from him. So
what exactly do you what did you want to hear?
I don't like, because I was thinking of somebody advanced in politics.
Chris.
Yes, sir.
What did you want to hear?
Maybe perhaps a politician.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you want to hear? Maybe that would bring clarity.
You have the topic that everyone wants to listen to, but the person that break it down did not do it proper the way people expected.
All right. The way you wanted it.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for joining. We appreciate you. So it's a story of different strokes for different
people.
Yeah. But thank you very much indeed, Doctor, for being part of the conversation this afternoon. We appreciate your time. And we're looking forward to having you return here again to look at the issues in very fine details. Do enjoy the week ahead. And, well, it looks like it's holidays for you all through.
yeah, we've been home for many months now. So, first holiday, and perhaps without pay. So,
how are you enjoying that?
Nobody should enjoy first holiday. I am missing my students and I want to go back to the classroom, particularly before the elections. I'm really praying that government should settle this so that the university gate to be open. I do not expect students to be at home while the elections are going on. I'm not sure that will be good for the process.
All right. Well, we'll talk a lot more the relationship between the elections and the institutions, tertiary institutions, students, and of course the entirety of that particular body in the coming days. Well, thank you again for joining the conversation this afternoon. Well, that's the much time allows us to go here on this afternoon's episode of Akwa Decides to return next week, Saturday and Sunday, same time, 3 p.m. So be sure to join us then. But from here, thank you very much. I'm Bright James. Do enjoy the brand new week.
Thank you.
Elections in Nigeria is characterized by fraud.
It is not pure election because of the way they conduct it.
The elections are here again. For us in Akwa Ibom State, it is another opportunity to elect credible and potential leaders.
But I see some of them are not really credible.
In fact, when you talk about the credibility in Nigerian system, it's absent.
As for the aspirants, what are your plans to better the lives of citizens and ensure that it is not just another era of political promises?
Some aspirants came up with so childish kind of manifesto, something that you know that they cannot do.
Even if after campaigning and promising heaven and earth, you find out that by the time they come in, they cannot do 50% of what they promised.
Because they are coming to see this. If they don't use this, they will not achieve what they want. So it is the normal thing they must use to convince a man that does not have a proper ideology to vote them.
So it's just a mere slogan. It's just a mere slogan to use and have their right into power.
What do you, the people, think about the elections?
The electoral process has been marred by malpractice and all of that.
That's a bad thing in Nigeria. All election nights are about money.
Definitely, no matter what the reforms they are carrying out, there will still be rigging.
It's about the aspirants, the manifesto, the people's view, an in-depth analysis.
That godfatherism is what has eaten deep into our political system. It has become a cankerworm that has left our political system into a corrupt system.
If it is not godfatherism, somebody like me, I will become the counselor. So because I don't have a godfather, it will not work.
Because people feel that they will come and invest, they need to get something back home. So the major aim is not about the people, it's about their family and themselves.
Godfatherism will not help the politics to grow. It won't help democracy to grow.
Vote buying will even be more this time around because these people, most of them have stolen a lot of money and they will use this money to buy votes.
Who gets to represent you in government at all levels?
Well, for me, the new breed aspirants, I would love the new breed aspirants. But for those, there are some of them that will not, I would say, definitely, I wouldn't want them to come back definitely to power.
Join us on Akwa Ibom Decides every Saturday and Sunday by 3 p.m. each day, exclusive to Spectrum Television, as we take on the aspirants set